struggle for advice today. Know how to spread my wings and fly away and throw all caution to the wind and take a leap of faith and jump right in. I heard a mother whisper to her babe, the first steps are the hardest ones to take, and it's okay if you shake. Get up and try again, you'll find the strength. So be mindful, be brave, don't be afraid of change. You'll find the reason for your pain in time. Be grateful, be great, and don't forget to play. Go out and find what makes you feel alive, and do it for the rest of your life. I still have some questions for the ocean tide, like how to come and go and fall after I rise, and learn to sway and ride the waves and let the moonlight lead the way. And be mindful, be brave, don't be afraid of change. You'll find the reason for your pain in time. Be grateful, be great, and don't forget to play. Go out and find what makes you feel alive, and do it for the rest of your life. The less I speak, the more I grow, the more I learn, the less I know, 'cause I don't know anything at all, and I don't know anything at all, but to be mindful and be present and live in every moment, and don't forget compassion and be kind. Remember the lesson that every day's a blessing. Go out and find and set your soul on fire, and do this for the rest of your life. Thank you.
All right, welcome, Stephen. Good to see you back here at Hubcast Studios today.
What a surprise, but not.
What's that?
I said, what a surprise, but not.
Yes, exactly, right?
Because we did our 2020 online conference right from this very spot, yeah, with the same vest.
Yes, exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's we're back here at Hubcast Studios here in Surrey. There are producers and AV experts for our events since 2018, and today we're here to speak about Iboga, but we're also here to really display the power of what we call a hybrid event. And some people think a hybrid event is a live event that's being live streamed, and the reality is it's not. That's just an event that's being live streamed. And what we call a virtual interactive event is what we're doing here. And this is why right now I'm asking for each and every one of you who is watching online in Zoom to please turn your cameras on. And we're going to show you why in just a moment. But we need your cameras on in order for us to do this. And so while we wait for you to turn your cameras on, Stephen, maybe you could just say a few words about our musical guest who just opened the show with a beautiful song.
Yeah, well, that was Vanessa LaFan Ewan, sometimes known as, by her artist name, just LaFan. You know, her music speaks for itself. I always find it heartbreakingly beautiful and angel voice. So, you know, like I say, what else can you say? Or what else do you need to say? Yeah, so she's a wonderful musician. Every part of her life is devoted to some aspect of music. And on top of that, she's going to be our sort of feature performer. She's going to perform a set at the conference, the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, which, if you don't know, is November 4th, 5th, and 6th in Vancouver. And Mark might say a little more about how there are wonderful online opportunities for that as well.
Well, we're going to talk about that because this is, you know, one of our goals here was to really just engage our community and to also highlight what we can do now with technology and what we call a virtual hybrid event, because we want people to know the difference. Peter, can we pop up the gallery? Are we ready? So we want to show you what that entails. What that entails is the ability to bring in our Zoom audience from everywhere around the world, where we can interact, we can talk with us here at the set, you can interact with speakers on the stage when we get to UBC, and it just allows us the opportunity to connect in a way that we can't do with a regular live stream. And that's what excites us about the technologies that we have moving forward as we bring in the studio. As you can see behind us here, there's everybody there. It's like having a whole audience that we can actually see, interact with, and bring you in as part of our studio audience.
Welcome, folks.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. I know we've got people joining us from, you know, it's always interesting because we had about 40 people sign up online. We've got 10 people in the room, which is great. So we thank you all for being here. And we ask you to keep your cameras on during the duration of the event because we also want to pop you up and let you know that we see you and that this is one of the reasons why we're here, because we really want to highlight the power of a hybrid virtual interactive event, and we'll be able to bring you in online for our Q&A and our panel session towards the end of our session today. So I want to thank Hubcast Studios for the work that they do in this beautiful studio, the beautiful video wall, and to be able to bring this in such a way. Because like I say, we've got, I know I see Amy Melrose, she's in Washington, D.C., which is awesome. Laurie Snyder in Vancouver. We have Sammy Maselli, who I know is in Tulum, Mexico. Angel, I believe you're close to us here as well. So, you know, we also have an audience in-house. So there you can see our in-studio audience.
Hundreds of people.
I know, but it's a great example, right? So imagine when we're, you know, at the conference in November, when we've got 500, 600 people in the audience. You can see the audience. We're going to have, you know, upwards of 1,000 people online. So we really, really look forward to bringing this to a whole new level of what we call a hybrid conference. So I'm going to stop babbling now, and I'm going to pass it on to Stephen so we can get started for why you guys are really here, and that's to learn about this remarkable and incredible plant medicine called Iboga.
Right. So am I introducing Elizabeth now?
Yes, you are, Stephen.
Okay. Where are you, Elizabeth? Is she here? Yeah.
Yeah, she's coming. There she is.
Oh, there she is. Hello, Elizabeth. Great to have you.
Good to be here.
Oh, good. There we go. Yeah. So I'm not going to say too much about Elizabeth. There's a bio on the event page. You can read more. But she's a very experienced Iboga, or I always call it Iboga, but what the hey. Practitioner trained traditionally in Gabon, where that video a little while ago was showing. And she's provider. Oh, we've got people in the background. Anyway,
Sorry, that is my toddler.
Elizabeth is a traditionally trained provider, and she also has a center. Let's see, it's called the Soul Center Iboga Retreats, and that's in Costa Rica, is it not, Elizabeth?
So Soul Centro is in Costa Rica, yes.
Yeah. I also want to mention that Elizabeth is a past presenter at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. So please share your insights, knowledge, and wisdom with us, Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, Mark. It's such a beautiful joy and honor to be here. And I also want to say thank you to Mark Howard, my co-presenter here. I've learned so much from Mark over the years, and he's truly a brother on this path. So what beautiful company. Thank you. And I want to thank Iboga. I know Iboga as a living spirit and not a medicine even to consume or a substance in that way. Iboga is a spirit. And I want to say thank you to our Bwiti teachers, Binana and Mokori, who have shared so much with us to bring to the West, to bring to the world at this time when we need so much healing, when humanity's on a precipice. And we're so grateful for everything that's been shared. Grateful for Gabon. So Iboga has quite a reputation. And by the way, feel free to let me know if I'm coming to a time limit. I'll try to keep an eye out. Iboga has quite a reputation. It is the Mount Everest of medicines. That is true. And it has this reputation for being so challenging and so intense and so overwhelming or even frightening. And while that is true, there is more to the picture. And right now, I notice that most of the people in the Western world look at Iboga as a drug detox medicine, for the most part, as an addiction treatment, especially with Ibogaine, and that's it. And that's its primary function in people's minds. And I often hear people say, oh, well, I'm not called to Iboga because I don't have hard addictions. And it's so unfortunate. I really want to help expand the narrative around this medicine to include the Bwiti perspectives on who this medicine is and why it is here. And treating addiction and detoxification of mind and body is really just the first thing that it must do in order to bring us to its real divine program. And unfortunately, especially in the world of Ibogaine, people have their Ibogaine treatment and they get detoxed and then they stop. And then that's it. When in truth, this medicine works in layers. In these beautiful layers. It begins with this most rigorous detoxification, not only of the body, but of the mind. There's a mind purge that can be very challenging. Just like the body can purge in a multitude of ways, the mind purge. And that's a really intense experience to have all of the contents of your psyche excavated at 300 miles an hour, what it feels like. And then there's also the next layers of detox. So there's detoxification on a spiritual level. There's the soul detox, emotional detox. There's all of this cleansing and a rejuvenation of our neurology. This is, I would venture to say, based on that's available to us, that this is the ultimate medicine for neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. And this is demonstrated through the anecdotal report. And there's a study now with a Stanford researcher on veterans for a traumatic brain injury. We're seeing remarkable results for healing and improvement from traumatic brain injury, and the ability to cultivate new nerve tissue. The neuroprotective mechanisms are incredible. So from the detoxification, Iboga will move us through healing trauma. And it must all come up in order to come out. It must come up so that we can study it like a scientist looking through a microscope, to study it carefully, because we can't let go of something until we fully know what we're letting go of, right? It's consciousness, digestion. So the trauma healing will come up, and we're there to support people in letting it go, in giving it to the earth, breath by breath, to move through old patterns. It's also very difficult to let go of old patterns, because all those old patterns have always helped people to survive until this moment. So through that process of healing trauma, and also trauma is healed through the soul connection. In the West, we know that in trauma, there's disassociation. That's what we call disassociation. But the Bwiti would call disassociation the soul ejecting itself from a situation that we don't have the tools for, that we can't digest in our nervous system in that moment. So through the modalities that we've learned through the Misoko Bwiti in particular, because there's different branches of the Bwiti, the Misoko Bwiti have technologies and a modality for reconnecting people with their soul and healing that relationship, because it is a relationship. So then moving through the trauma healing, then we get to holistic wellness. Now, people come into the medicine with questions, all kinds of questions, existential questions, questions around purpose or service. This is one of the many traditional purposes for the medicine. And people will have questions about their health, medical questions, questions around the ideal diet and lifestyle. And while we certainly can't heal every ailment that's out there, the medicine can always share with us the best modalities or medicines or healing practitioners to help us, if not heal, if then to improve. Or, and also to be present with what's happening, to find the spiritual alchemy in everything that's being presented. So we have this holistic wellness phase, this layer, and then the medicine takes us to soul-aligned visionary creativity. This is its highest function, to express ourselves in this world, to express our beauty, our potential. It's such a medicine for creativity, for connecting the dots, for thinking outside the box, for channeling inspiration directly from the universe with our soul as captain. And this is an incredible medicine for very high level, high functioning people, change makers. Would love to see policymakers here. This is also the place where we start to tap into solutions. And this is what we need right now in humanity, solutions. And what's beautiful is that through the process where we heal our relationship with our own mind, and we're able to channel and direct the power of our mind with our soul becomes in charge of the mind, instead of all of the old conditioning, multi-generational trauma, limiting beliefs, self-criticism, neuroses, like all the neuroses that used to fill up the space with so much noise. When that is out of the way, there's a direct channel to inspiration from the universe that is remarkable. And as providers, that's part of our work, to get the neuroses out of the way so that we can connect to and channel the medicine directly to support people through their process. So it's marvelous. It's an incredible relationship. Iboga is so intelligent and knows so many plants. Its roots really stretch into the entire ecosystem of the earth. And it's such a beautiful friend to have in the room in that way and to listen to instead of our own monkey mind. I mean, the mind is beautiful for plane tickets and taxes and audiovisual production. It's really great for those things when it's directed by the soul. And I'd like to honor and highlight some of the traditional purposes for the Iboga medicine according to the Misoko Bwiti, which is our lineage. And these include, spiritual initiation, knowing what life is and why we're here, what it's for. That's one of the most beautiful purposes. And by the way, the Bwiti don't just take it in initiation. There's all kinds of ceremonies, and the elders will microdose often to connect to the spirit. So it's really abundantly utilized in the Misoko Bwiti. So the other purpose is answering questions. Like I talked about, we present our questions, and that relates to the origin story we have through the Misoko Bwiti, answering questions for us. And sometimes they happen, the answers come right in ceremony, like a bolt of lightning. And sometimes they come long after as we become ripe and ready to receive them. So spiritual and physical healing. Healing is one of the great purposes of Iboga. And shamanic diagnosis and prescription. This is what the Gangas or the Mabundi healers will utilize Iboga for. They will take the medicine to understand the other medicines that are needed. And we started to experience some of that training when we were in Africa, and it's a completely different way of knowing. It's a mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing technology to be able to tap into the archives of the ecosystem and the archives of our own subconscious and whole mind to have diagnosis and prescription for people. Self-study and mindfulness is one of the purposes of Iboga. Study of life, study of nature, how nature works. Like, for example, reciprocity is a principle of nature. That's how life is sustained. Or noting that diversity always makes life stronger. This is studying life, soul healing, soul connection. It is a hunter's medicine. So hunters will microdose Iboga for these long days in the bush. And it's for physical endurance. It's a stimulant to the central nervous system. It's for mental focus. It's also for spiritual focus. In the same way, the medicine helps us to hunt our own destiny, our own life. It is a medicine that loves momentum and clarity and focus. And it can really help us, if that's our intention, to hunt our destiny. It is a spiritual warrior medicine. It brings us, it confronts us with who we are, what we've done, what's really in our psyche. And in that way, we're invited to step into courage, our courage, and to move through our inner obstacles. Iboga is utilized to discover our true purpose, to learn more about our service to humanity. As I mentioned, creativity and the arts as well, and all kinds of creativity, business creativity, all kinds. And study through microdosing and solutions, finding solutions to problems, protection and seeing. So the Iboga and divination as well. In that way, nothing's ever written in stone through this kind of divination, but Iboga can show us what's down the path that we're on, because we're always on a path. There's always momentum. We're always going somewhere. And so Iboga shows us, well, what's behind door A or door number 1, and what's behind door number 2. If you keep going on this path, so we can always make choices and always resituate ourselves. And there are some things that are inevitable, of course, like death. There are these things that are coming that Iboga helps us to be ready for, to face, to move through, to be present. So seeing in that way is a form of protection. Community celebration ceremonies, welcome ceremonies. Iboga is utilized for direct communication with nature and the spirits of nature, fertility and virility. and aphrodisiac. People won't imagine that based on its reputation, but after the cleansing, and especially with microdosing, it's one of the most powerful medicines in the world for fertility, virility, and aphrodisiac, because Iboga loves life. Iboga loves love. Iboga loves relationships and families. Iboga can help us find a mate. This is something that we can look for in the medicine space. And navigating and tending human relationships, and communion with ancestors, and healing ancestral lines, where it opens up the doors to actually visit with our ancestors and loved ones on the other side to help them heal. Because we're in the matrix of the body, which is really the substrate where we heal. And we can help to heal and liberate our ancestors as they live right within our bodies, right within our DNA. It can help us learn about self-love, and it's also traditionally utilized for remote viewing. That is a technology of the Bwiti, and astral travel in the same way of discovering the universe, visiting celestial bodies and receiving medicine teachings directly from the celestial bodies, and spiritual discovery, which is limitless. So that's a few of the traditional purposes. And there's so much more. I hope that it's clear that Iboga is so much more than a detox medicine. There's so many beautiful contemporary benefits for some of these traditional purposes, for helping with PTSD and depression and anxiety. Anxiety, yes, it's a great medicine for anxiety. It's not an easy medicine for anxieties, but it really has the potential with a good container to help us move through anxieties and channel the energy of anxieties. And of course, healing addiction, traumatic brain injury. We're seeing amazing reports for Parkinson's, remission from Parkinson's, eating disorders. We've seen beautiful results for OCD. And again, the neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, which is so helpful for anyone who's suffered from the damaging effects of like concussions and other forms of brain injury at the right time, not fresh brain injury. It has to be the right time. So self-love is a big one, and knowing how we can show up in this time of climate change, right? That's a very important function of the medicine for these times. It really is ancestral medicine for the present moment. So relationships and communities, it can help us with our existential questions, connection to nature. A lot of us in the urban worlds feel disconnected from nature, or in the Cartesian split of the materialist world. So it can really help us with that deep relationship to nature and artistic creativity strategy, including professional strategies and intellectual performance. It's a marvelous medicine for intellectual performance, especially over longer term or multiple treatments, and social solutions for our world. So that is what I have to share. I'll say that it is a very powerful medicine, a very complex medicine, and it's very important to go to a qualified provider with qualified medical screening, not just any medical screening, but qualified medical screening with someone who deeply understands this medicine, and qualified medical support. Someone who understands all of the contraindicated conditions and medications, and even common herbs and supplements. So there's many, many medications that are contraindicated. So it's just so important. And please don't order medicine online. Sometimes the medicine can come from elephant poachers. A lot of medicine that's been purchased online has been found to be adulterated, or the wrong toxic plant, or too weak to detox someone, which can put them in a very compromised state. So there's a lot of dangers, even with microdosing. It's very important to start with a qualified provider, qualified medical screening, and have these initial experiences in that safe space so that you can begin to have a relationship with the medicine. So every year we take people to Africa, people who've been with us on retreat first, to prepare and to be screened for that experience. We'll take people every summer to visit our teachers, our beautiful, renowned, ethical, generous teachers in Gabon for initiation and rite of passage. So we're available for that, and we love serving. And I'm so grateful for our team and the privilege of holding this medicine in this side of the world and being able to bear witness to the human rose garden blooming. So thank you so much for your kind attention. I am complete.
Thank you, Elizabeth. In my humble opinion, that was an extremely compelling and eloquently expressed case, so to speak, for the multiple benefits of Iboga. Clearly, obviously, you have the chops, so to speak, the experience to be able to talk about it in that way. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, medicine, for guiding me along the way and teaching me. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thanks for joining us. So, from Elizabeth, we're going to go back to our angel-voiced and heartbreakingly beautiful singer-songwriter, Vanessa LaFan-Ewan.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing. I have not had the opportunity to meet Iboga yet on my journey, but I feel like those takeaways and like learnings really resonate with other experiences that I've had with plant medicine teachers. And it definitely shows up a lot in my creative work and my music. And it's a huge reason of why I am walking the path that I am walking and do it with purpose. So I'm going to share a couple of songs about purpose and connection to nature, and very much inspired by some journeys that I've had.
As I'm standing at the edge with my arms wide open, facing the ocean, sing, Mama, if you hear me, can you please answer my questions? Like, why am I here on this ride in the atmosphere? Sometimes it's not so clear. Where's the way through all these fears? The signals like the passage of an eagle who leaves behind a feather to mark the winding roads we traveled. So I will go the distance over rivers and mountains, saying, Mama, if you hear me, can you please answer my questions? She whispered inside my ear, saying, child, you worry, dear, at low tide, go walk on by, on reflections like a mirror. When I did, that's when I realized I'm walking on the sky. I'm dancing with the wind. The heaven that we search is nowhere but on earth and within. the trees. To grow tall, I must dig deep. Look to the stars and bend in the breeze. Spend my whole life reaching towards the light. That's why I am here on this ride in the atmosphere. With time, it's becoming clear what to do with time left in these years. Thank you. So that song is called Omens and Signs, and it's very much about reading like little, I don't know, kind of like candy trails that life leads us, the universe leads us to be like, yes, this is the path that I'm meant to be on. And that might be, for me, it's often like birds and things in nature. But sometimes it's even like chance meetings, being in the right place at the right time to meet the right person and saying yes and just trusting whatever the universe is presenting to you. I got one more song for this little intermission thing, and it's called Bodies of Water. And I wrote it kind of in honor of our collective responsibility. So all the things that we share, which for me really traces back to our own connections to nature, but also our ancestors, our ancestry, and each other. We all reside in these bodies made of water. And for any of us living in a piece of land that's not the land that our ancestors are from, somebody crossed a huge body of water to get here, likely. I don't think land bridges connect that well anymore. We crossed a body of water to be here. So what does it mean for us to be here now? What responsibilities do we hold being people here? And walk this path together. So, yeah. Have you ever wandered the lands of your ancestors? Do you hear them calling from the center of the earth? Do you feel alone, far away from home? Darling, don't you know you carry all their hopes? Oh, my brothers and sisters, does blood really run thicker than these bodies of water that hold us together? Take a moment to remember who paved all these roads under our feet on this journey to create a new world. Which wings made the winds that blow to these distant shores, so we can finally tell these stories they couldn't before. And oh, my brothers and sisters, does blood really run thicker than these bodies of water that hold us together? Oh, my brothers and sisters, does blood really run thicker than these bodies of water that hold us together? Hey.
Thanks a lot, Vanessa. Vanessa's going to be back for one more song at the end of today's event. And also, I just want to remind folks again that Vanessa will be a significant presence at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference. She's going to do a 15-minute set on Saturday, November 5th, and then she'll have a role in our cannabis ceremony in the evening, and I'm pretty sure she's going to be doing a song along with Shine and Curtis for the dance portion of that afterward. And again, that's November 4th, 5th, and 6th, and there's both in person and, as Mark will no doubt tell you more about at some point, wonderful versions of online participation. Mark?
Thanks, Stephen, and thank you, Vanessa. That was beautiful. Looking forward to seeing you again in November. I remember first meeting Vanessa in 2018 as she was part of our volunteer team for the conference. So I thank you and honor you for your service there as well. And I get the great pleasure to introduce my namesake. However, he does spell his name wrong. He does it with a K, these guys. I don't know what that's all about, but I had the great pleasure of meeting Mark Howard a few years back, probably about 4 years ago now in 2018 when I started working with Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, and I got to know him quite well with the work that he's doing with Iboga. He was featured in the documentary film Dose, which won awards all over the world, and was also in a city TV documentary called Psychedelic Frontiers. So, you know, he's been working with Iboga for, I'm not sure exactly how long, but I'm sure he'll probably tell us. Mark, I thank you for joining us here today from beautiful Mexico. Welcome to this program today.
Thanks. It's a really pleasure to be here. It's amazing to have all these people in the audience and online, you know, even if it's not thousands of people, it's, you know, even getting through to one person, because everyone's so important that they can then, you know, pass it along to so many other people. We basically are reaching out to thousands of people. You know, it just depends who you're reaching out to and what they're getting from this. You know, Elizabeth Bast is super close friends of mine. We have these skirts behind us here, the same ones. I was at their wedding in 2014 in Gabon. Her husband and I are kind of like really best friends. You know, Patrick and Michelle, who work with them there. Patrick's, I would say, you know, it's hard to say one spoke on a wheel is better than the other one, but he's a pretty good spoke in terms of medical practitioners around the world. He's very educated as how this medicine works when treating people from anything from detox, heart conditions, medications, psychotherapy aspects, and he's now a Bwiti initiate. So he can bring in that traditional context when working with people in ceremony. Elizabeth, you know, shared a lot of very relevant information. So I guess what I'll do is basically in Africa, a big fundamental part of the ceremonies is what we call a fire talk, where we sit around a circle and we talk about truth. Truth being like a river flows, you know, where it's going to go. It doesn't really lie unless impeded. So originally, you know, 11 years I've been working with the medicine, and, you know, thanks for calling me an Iboga expert. A bit steep. Once you've been to Africa a few times, I've been 4 times. There's some experts there, you know, many years, like basically lifetimes. They pass it down from family to families, all through their families. You know, it started with the Babongo people, which is the big pygmies, which are some of the oldest people on the planet known to have lived and create, you know, languages and cultures. They discovered it. The original story was that they, I'll just quickly sum this up, is basically a hunter was out and he was finding his traps, and he found a porcupine in one of his traps and brought it home. His wife ended up cooking it up when he went to sleep and ate some of it and felt something a bit different, and kind of like had this experience where she was kind of like, you know, not really sure what's going on, kind of having visions a little bit. And anyways, she ended up telling her husband about it. He brought it to the chief of the village. The chief went with the hunter to where they got the porcupine and discovered that, you know, where he was, he had been gnawing on some roots. Iboga kind of looks like this right here, this tree, kind of, not much, like it's a bush like that. It can be much bigger or smaller, but generally it's kind of bushy like that. And they had noticed that the porcupine had been chewing on some roots. And so they grabbed some of that root, and the chief brought it back and gave it to his wife to try out. And so basically the women are really fundamental in this whole situation because they're the first ones to really do Iboga. And they have a branch of this tradition now called the Mabundi, and that represents the women. And this woman then got these visions, and the Iboga spirit presented him or herself to her and said, I'm the Iboga spirit. I represent life. Anything you need to ask me, I will help you answer. And so I think that's an important thing to understand, is that medicine is given to us as a gift and help us, answer questions that can help guide us in life. And so then the Bantu, they're called, is basically a moving tribe. And again, I'm very loose. I'm going off things I've learned. Like, they apparently left Africa and then came back 70,000 years. This are all long times of stuff. These traveling groups of Africans connected with the Babongo, the original Pygmy tribes, and then began to learn these traditions from them and learn how to work with Iboga. And so what you have is the original, the Apinju and the Mutsogo were the Babongo tribes. They started sharing it with the Bantus. And what happened is they created this branch, which we call Masoko, and it branched out, and they kind of have different ways. They sort of take different things, like the original traditions, what they called the Sumba. They ate a lot of medicine. You really, learn about things like creation, where you're from, cosmological, interpersonal, just, wild answers about, like, basically going as far as you can to almost, asking God, like, what happens after death. But I think there's certain things, that are left up for God to answer. You can only go so far, but people climb this traditional path to the top. And then what they do is they begin to share this information down to help their generations. These people's experience becomes their history, and their history becomes their tradition. And that tradition is kept sacred and intact, and it's actually guarded, quite a bit of it. So there's a lot of, like, when you're over there, there's a lot of, like, misinformation that can come from people going over there and learning from wrong people because of money. There's also cultural appropriation, which is also, like, you got to remember, this place was highly colonialized, and there was a lot of, slave taken from that area. And again, this is someone's culture that wants to be protected. So some of these tribes will not even share it with other tribes, let alone white people. But some will, because some of the teachers, what they say is, like, well, he's white, I'm black, but we still come out of a woman's birth canal, and we're still from God. And so these things are to be shared, but either way, they're not just to be shared like Pez candy out of the corner store. It is particularly guarded. And one thing I will say is that a lot of these secrets that are guarded and shared when the appropriate time comes, it's about, like, not only understanding the truth, it's about accepting the truth and then incorporating those messages into your life so that they become more apparent in your life, like your ability to make good choices, to fortify your decision making, which your actions then become, your life. So what happened after that is, a story goes, there was someone in one of the villages that his wife was sick, and she was incurable, basically. Nothing. They had tried everything with her. She was dying. There was nothing left. And this husband loved his wife so much, loved her so much. He wasn't about to let her die. And he had heard about the magical healing powers of these pygmy people who are so connected with nature, to the point where I've heard even they could go out hunting and basically talk an animal into coming down and lying down in front of them and giving them his life to him. Now that's extreme, but these are things that, we've kind of lost in our concrete structure of reality. So he decided to go and walk till he couldn't walk anymore out into the middle of the bush in the forest. And he walked out until he basically collapsed. And like Gulliver's Travel, he woke up and then was surrounded by these little people, basically learned how to communicate with them. And they loaded him up with Iboga. And they taught him to go in the forest and speak to the plants. And he got the cure for his wife, brought it back, and he cured her. And everybody saw this amazing miracle. But, to some, it is a miracle, the miracle of life, but we're so hidden from that miracle. It's a total miracle to us because we're not used to that level of healing where, the pharmacy is in the jungle and the answers are within yourself. So that's an amazing story of how this medicine then came to the villages and the cities. And now, you know, a large percentage of Gabon is Bwiti, and Bwiti is the tradition, and that means the study of life. So we now, as providers, have come to this medicine. You know, we take a lot of responsibility on in learning how to bring these traditions and incorporate them into our society, the West. You know, and so basically, you know, say you want an answer for a problem. Some of the most obvious problems are addictions. Addictions are very obvious because someone's basically life or death, especially in the climate that we live in now with fentanyl and benzodiazepines and really deadly stuff that's very easy to overdose and die, and actually can take over. It's a darkness that is almost enveloping, and it's hard for someone to sometimes see the light when they're already having difficulty seeing the light. So Iboga is a medicine of the light, loves to push out dark. So what we've learned, like, for instance, if you've seen the movie Dosed, that was a combination of using a traditional method of shamanistic healing for detox mixed with a psychospiritual. So doing the physical detox of the drug, but also incorporating the psychospiritual aspects of the healing that comes from what we've learned with the traditions, because Musoko is a healing for relationships and for growth. And that's what, you know, we have to learn to do with it. You have to learn how to use this medicine in a therapeutic way. So what we do now, I guess, what we've learned is, so I'd like to talk about now what we've learned from Dosed, is that, you know, we like to keep the physical detox separate from the psychospiritual. So I think this is what Elizabeth was saying, is that it's very important to look at like destigmatizing this medicine as only a detox medicine, because that's obviously the first goalpost that you're going to come across in this football game. It needs to be taken care of, kind of like, you know, you need to clean those clothes before you go to church. But basically, almost like I could say it like this: it's like someone doesn't give a beep about spirituality sometimes. They're more wanting to deal with withdrawals in a hardcore detox situation. And all these different drugs and medicines now can cause complications with Iboga, because it's electricity. It's electric love flowing through all the veins of your body. You got to be ready for that, you know, whether it's your electrolytes, your spirit, everything's got to be, you know, you got to be. So there's a system in place to take care of this in order. I think then, you know, like I always say too, like someone could be addicted to being, I won't say it, but someone could be addicted to being nasty. It could be very negative to people, and they might not really, like an addiction or something else that might not scream out of them to heal that until it's too late. And then at the end of their life, they have to face all these relationships and go through a lot of heartache when they're older because of the way they were. Now, you could almost argue that addiction is almost just as detrimental or as hurtful or harmful to someone as having an addiction early on in life. So basically, underneath the addiction and underneath being harmful to other people, or an eating disorder, or being disconnected from yourself because of low confidence, you know, you might have a belief system that you're no good because someone you know, your mother you grew up with telling you you're no good her whole life because she had trauma from, you know, it's on and on. Whatever it is affecting the way you see yourself, that needs to be fixed. And Iboga is amazing for this. It's amazing for coming in and being a truthful medicine to show you, like, you know, maybe the way you're thinking about yourself isn't right, and you should have a look at that again, because each and every one of you is special in the eyes of God. No matter what it is really you do, you're going to have to face it. You know, that's what Elizabeth is saying. It's time to bring that truth to how do you heal the mind? You bring the truth to it. Iboga is a truth medicine. And sometimes people say it's very scary or powerful and they're fearful of it. It's because they're really afraid of that level of truth. Are they ready to accept that much truth? Maybe take it slow, but are you ready to live with that much untruth in your life? That's a better question. So it's a beautiful medicine, you know. And then after Dose, I got called from national television. You know, this was a little more in a different style because it wasn't over a long period where we could edit it. This was like camera crews following me around. And so they said, what would you like to show after Dose? And I said, well, I'd like to show more of the healing abilities of Iboga with, in terms of its potential to help people that are not in addiction. So we said, well, let's look at first responders. And so we had this fellow named Paz, who's he's a firefighter, a very reputable firefighter. And firefighters are some of the most reputable citizens in our society because of what they do and how you look up to them. And he lost all his fingers in a search and rescue event on Mount Logan. So we worked with him. And then also we had a gentleman named Patrick Molden, who was awarded a Medal of Bravery in Afghanistan because of his heroic effort saving someone who got blown up on the front lines. He's a special asset. So he went in as a bomb disposal technician and disarmed a bomb so that the helicopter could land and save someone else in the team that was injured. And well, someone else had already been killed, and seen tons of trauma, tons of head trauma, lots of really, really deep trauma. But following this documentary ended up turning into a bit of a drug addiction as well, because he was suffering from quite a methamphetamine addiction. So either way, Adrienne in the movie Dosed is over 4.5 years clean right now. She's actually working in the East Side doing harm reduction around people like who are on the street shooting up every day, which is quite a remarkable thing to say. I can say right now, Patrick is 43 days today sober and doing quite amazing. It's been a very serious, epic journey, which a lot of this is. It's not just some silver, amazing cure that you need to just mix up into a glass and someone drinks down, and then voila, they're doing a booty dance across the dance floor in front living room. So, Patrick said to me the other day, I was like, well, how can you think the medicine helped you with this? And he's like, well, I'll tell you one thing is that sometimes when the craving is kicking out and it's telling me that, what all these things, why I need to, they pull me back in and go use. He said, sometimes that experience of the psychospiritual and it will come through stronger and pull me back in the direction of positivity and stay on track that I need to stay on where I need to go. So I think documentaries are an amazing way to, they're pretty intense putting ourselves out there with them, but I've never been, hunted by the deep state or something like that, like I haven't, and there's, a lot of people see it, and I know a lot of, it's a good way to reach out, especially in Canada, our culture, it's hard for me to, line people up and treat thousands of people, but it was a different thing to be able to show this on film, the different abilities, and just open it up to people who are either going to use the medicine to heal themselves or get strong enough to be able to heal themselves and then use the medicine to heal other people. It's a great tool. And that's why events like this with this hybrid podcast, each one of these is so important, because the more you heal the self, that's where it all comes. You can't do anything else unless you heal the self. That's what this medicine is about. And so it's been an honor to talk to everybody today. We look forward to your questions. We're going to continue to, and I'm blessed. Even if I had all the money in the world right now, I would still be doing this. I can only spend so much time sitting on the beach. I got 3 kids now, a new one who's like just turned over 1, another one's 6. We're in Mexico right now doing retreats in just north of Cabo San Lucas. It's pretty accessible for people. Ibogasoul.com, you can check it out. We're the same high level belief system, not belief system, but truth. That, these sessions need to be done very, medically informed, very watched over. The container needs to be super sacredly solid, because it's a big medicine, and you're big people. So Bast to everybody. Look forward to some questions and answers. And it was a real super pleasure talking to you all today.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. It's always a pleasure to hear you share your experience and what you've been through. And I really also want to acknowledge just the courage that it takes, because, this kind of work is in some areas not well received or seen as illegal or whatever that might be. But I do really acknowledge your courage for stepping out and bringing this medicine to the world, on such an international global level with Dosed, and, even 2.5 million views of Psychedelic Frontiers on YouTube, is a pretty powerful thing. So I just really want to acknowledge that in you, and thank you for doing that work and being part of changing lives, my friend. Awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to another song by the wonderful Vanessa, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do a little bit of a panel discussion. We've got a gentleman that I'll let Mark introduce in a moment. And then we will go into a Q&A. If anybody has any questions, this is a great time to connect and ask the questions that you may have. So I'm going to pass it to Vanessa.
Hi, I'm back. I never left, but I'm going to play a song. Thank you so much for sharing, Mark. And he talked a lot about the opioid crisis and all the people and all the suffering that is going on in the world and how these medicines can help. And I also appreciate when I'm speaking about like the medicines helping us process death, because death is the only sure thing about life, death, and change. And so I wrote this song for those who have passed on into another world, and as a way to honor them, say goodbye, but also like be at peace knowing that this isn't it. I personally don't believe that this is it. And there's so much more. So yeah.
Leave those long gone days behind. Your body couldn't cage your wild heart and your mind. Soar across every galaxy in space. Sail across the Milky Way, and I'll see you there someday. If you run over the green grass fields to where I cannot follow, over mountains that I thought were only molehills, will you jump a little higher than your legs can carry you, and howl on the dark side of the moon? Just got a little brighter as you flew a little higher. Another star has found a place amongst the moss on heaven's ground to rest the tender head of an angel looking down. If you run over the green grass fields to where I cannot follow, over mountains that I thought were only molehills, will you jump a little higher than your legs can carry you, and howl on the dark side of the moon? So say your last goodbye. Send it down a river. It's okay to cry. Nothing lasts forever. Say your last goodbye. Send it down a river. And it's okay to cry, 'cause nothing lasts you.
Thanks again, Vanessa. She'll be back one more time at the end. Correct, Mark?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Beautiful song. Thanks.
All right. So we're going to get into our Q&A, a little bit of a panel discussion here with Mark and Elizabeth.
Well, if anyone
type
here
into the
has
chat?
questions, we can do Q&A with you right here.
Okay, so we can hear you?
Yeah, so feel free to pop off if you have questions.
I'm going to
They're
Gabon
having their own.
in 2024 to be initiated with the Bawiti. My only concern is I'm transgender.
Aha.
And I'm not sure how safe of environment that is.
Thank you so much. Let's talk. Let's talk. And where are you going? Like what village?
The Bawiti, I can't remember
Or
off the
what
top of my
teacher?
head. Yeah.
Do you know the facilitator, the teacher?
There's actually 3 different tribes we're working with because it's a very large group. There's 40 of us going.
Oh,
So
who
they're-
organized it?
Awe. It's a
Who?
new Awe. They're in Colombia. It's a new psychedelic therapy training. It's a 4-year course for a PhD.
Oh, is this the one that Leela used to be involved in?
Leela, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm aware. Okay, so that one. All right. Good. So, well, first off, let them know because I don't know those particular elders. So having a conversation with the elders first, because they are, and this is a great question. We were literally like, our co-founder and I were just talking about this the other day. So they are a very binary culture with very specific gender roles. And by the way, Iboga itself is a gender fluid spirit. It goes between mother and father, right? So they are very binary. However, what I have noticed is that what is like the range of what's considered masculine or man or feminine or woman are much broader than what we have in the West. Like the strength, the assertiveness that women have here, like we would think they're not feminine here and vice versa. Like it's just beautiful. And they have very specific gender roles. However, those roles are not used for oppression. Those roles are they're actually interdependent and they keep secrets from each other. Like only the women do certain things that are absolutely integral to survival, and only the men do things that are absolutely integral to survival. So then we need each other, right? But they do have some taboos around queer, gay, and the whole spectrum. But it depends on where you're going. Tolerance. I know a trans woman who went for initiation and she had a marvelous experience. She felt very safe and welcome, but you just I would recommend that you have a conversation with the elders. Like, would you feel comfortable sitting with the men?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been sitting with the men. I've been in the course for 3 years now, so they don't know. I haven't told them because I wasn't sure in Colombia even how that was going to go over. So I've been feeling it out because we are the first class.
It's good to mention. It's good to tell them because there will be situations where like you're invited to have a spiritual shower or they don't have all the same fetishization of the body. So throwing clothes off, So I think it's good just to have a conversation and the elders will make sure like whatever the elders say it goes in the village.
I've been around like in a lot of my trips. There's been guys that are homosexual and lots of gay guys that I've been around, and they always get really accepted. I think you just be open with them and tell them.
Cool.
Graybird, hello.
Hi everyone. I was just at a loss. I've talked to people at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference about Ibogaine and Iboga. They're the same thing, right? Ibogaine and Iboga?
No, they're not. Yeah.
There's a question
Ibogaine, yes, Ibogaine is one alkaloid from a spectrum of 13 is what I know. And It's isolated, semi-synthesized, generally in a laboratory. Okay. And some of the other alkaloids are very important for functions, and it can be very helpful for like serving people in a medical scenario, like dosing by body weight. But it is a different medicine. Yeah, people who have done both say Iboga in ceremonial doses is much stronger, much richer of an experience.
I always say it's like the family reunion. Like, you know, I have all the alkaloids there. It's like having the whole family there. But cousin Eddie is like Ibogaine, and he's really good at interrupting addictions, but also can, like as Angel just said, blast someone off into a sacred spiritual experience.
Right. I think it's akin to extracting THC from cannabis.
Not really.
No.
A little bit. No.
Losing the spirit. No.
Ibogaine is like, it usually comprises about 50 to 60%.
Okay.
Of the medicine, and they also very synergetic, like THC. It can synergetically, you know, like when you mix it with CBD or something, it has more different effects, right?
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, but THC is a real main constituent. Whereas I feel the other alkaloids, like we use TA is what we use because we extract the Iboga and we extract total alkaloids. We use all the alkaloids. Taking Ibogaine out, it's quite different.
Okay.
I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, just reference to the spirit of the plant. So the spirit of the plant is with the plant itself. When you ingest the plant itself, you're ingesting the spirit of the plant. But if you're just taking one of the components, like THC, you're losing that. Yeah. Anyway, that wasn't. Sorry, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
No, it's a rabbit hole because tell that to some people who have been like experienced God, and a lot of I've heard way similar stories of people that do an Ibogaine flood. It's hard to argue that one.
Okay, fair enough. I'll accept that. My question is, why is a ceremony, Iboga ceremony, 32 hours long, or 36 hours, or however many days?
That's how long this answer is going to be.
How long the dance is going to be.
Just kidding.
Yeah, okay. I've seen people laid out for 4 days.
My limit is, my medicine is ayahuasca, and it's a five hour thing, right? You're there for 5 hours. You go deep, you come out, and you're fine. You can go drive home, and that's about all I can tolerate. Yeah. I don't think I could sit with Iboga for like 12 hours. With LSD is huge for me. It's just, it gets so exhausting. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's a totally different thing. Maybe you don't get exhausted using Iboga.
Depends what you want.
Right.
I see.
Of course.
It is a long-acting medicine. The longest. It can be. It's a 72-hour medicine, really. I mean, strongly 48 hours, and then sometimes the whole next day. I've seen people in very, very tender spaces just phasing out. But Iboga does what other medicines don't do. And you know yourself. It's a soul call. It's not an intellectual decision. It's not a challenge. It's not, something to, like a notch, it's a soul call. And I heard one guest say, Iboga is like 100 ayahuasca ceremonies in a night.
Wow.
And I have had friends who have experienced every medicine say that, this medicine goes deeper than any other medicine. It excavates like no other medicine. And it also up-levels people like no other medicine, potentially with participation and with a process. And it may not be for everyone. And that is so fine. It just a soul call. Like the plant is very chatty.
Hi. Okay, so I was pleasantly surprised to hear about Iboga being a good fit for PTSD and trauma, brain trauma. So I am a post-concussion survivor, and what I like to call PTSG instead of PTSD, post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic growth. And I'm curious to know, do we need to do macro ceremonies, or can we do more of a microdose for that kind of intent?
Yeah, should I jump in there, Mark? Is that okay?
Sure.
So it was trauma that brought me to the medicine. It was my partner had an opiate relapse, and then I learned about the medicine, and then I felt the call. Because despite all of the modalities and all the other medicines and the yoga and meditation and all the things for a couple decades, I still had this relationship with enduring and exhausting trauma responses. And I was so grateful for how the medicine taught me to heal my trauma, because it's really us that heals ourselves. And I'm very grateful for the flood dose. For brain injury, we would want to look at proper medical directors like ours or like Mark's can look at what's happening where you're at with your neurology and see if it's appropriate, if it's an appropriate time, because maybe depending on when it happened, there will be an appropriate time. And it could be both are helpful. It could be both are helpful. Microdosing is harder to access in a safe way. People do it, but sometimes get in a lot of trouble or dangerous spaces. Our intention this next year is to have a microdosing retreat, to get a microdosing retreat on the schedule so that people can be screened and be held in a safe container. And a lot of people are intimidated by Iboga also. So to have a space to get to know the medicine in this more subtle way. But I would recommend, if you're even microdosing, work with a provider first, who is safe and who's qualified to support you through that. But both could be very helpful. Mark?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was only gonna say that personally, I wasn't considering Iboga really at all, because I've done ayahuasca once and it was powerful enough for me. And where I find my biggest ally to be in the psychedelic space is in the mushroom. But now, in light of what I'm learning here, I am intrigued. Of course, I think, okay, can I go to Costa Rica and do this microdosing retreat? That sounds kind of cool, right? Or do I have to go to Africa and do this whole initiation? What is the commitment level? Those kind of thoughts that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, what is your brain trauma? Like, what kind of head trauma did you have?
It's kind of a funny story. I had a camera fall on my head when I worked at Walmart from a shelf, a camera that wasn't supposed to be on a shelf. And it fell from a distance. So it hit me right in the sweet spot. And from that, I've been snowballing trauma after trauma after trauma. So my body has been incredibly bruised from so many angles. Like there's many of them.
So how does the trauma affect your daily life?
I started having migraines, and I started affecting my ability to stand, sit, work, use the computer. I couldn't even use headphones, for example.
This is a trauma that needs to be balanced out on a physical level, almost before really, and then to what Elizabeth is saying, it sounds like on the physical level, you need to address that. We always have to address the body like that. Like maybe using some root bark might help with it. Often it helps miraculously with like brain injuries and things like that. But if you're showing symptoms, that's the key right there. Symptomatic signs like that, you know what I mean? It's a great, if you have your flooring is just covered with trauma flooring, Iboga is an amazing like crowbar to come in and pull that up, put new flooring in. It's a great tool. But that carpenter's not going to work real well if he's falling all over. Dizzy.
No, yeah. And I mean, nowadays that trauma happened a long time ago, but it was the catalyst to all the other traumas that came afterwards. And it's been, 20 years almost exactly of reoccurring traumas, physical traumas
out there right now, like for a brain, that we're learning about like different nutraceuticals and other sort of therapies that are really helping. So if you could get that physicality fixed with some of these modalities, then Iboga would be an amazing thing for you. Really, really loves cleaning up post-traumatic stress disorder.
Cool. Yeah, the physical, I've done a lot of work, and I have a full team, and that's been my healing journey to South America. I'm originally from Argentina, so now it's bridging Argentina, Canada, Mexico, and bridging tourism in spirit plant medicine. So my journey, my traumas have actually led me to my destiny and my purpose. And even our family's brand is called Destinos. And so it's all been very purposeful, a lot of physical work. But yeah, now I'm just exploring the possibility of maybe Iboga.
And I love that you're on a swing in the woods.
Yes.
I mean, I've been just enjoying that the whole time. I'm like, that's the way to Zoom, people.
In the jungle.
Bessie. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Jesse. So, Mark, Jesse's here.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, Jesse.
Can't see you though, but Jesse was a finalist in America's Got Idol singing contest in 2019. He won, so he's going to perform. No, just kidding.
What?
No.
How Deep Is Your Love by Jesse Van Dock. Jesse, I don't know, like, maybe you're from Vancouver. He's got an amazing story. If you want to, like, maybe just share some of your story about Iboga, what brought you to Iboga. It's an amazing story, and he's part of a documentary he's been doing, and also just went to Africa. So maybe you just want to share a little bit about all of that. We thought it'd have a good example of someone in live talking about real experience with Iboga.
Yeah, so the short version of it is. That's really loud. I used to be an addict on the street. Lived on the street. Was using IV, heroin, crystal meth, and yeah, my life was in shambles. I got clean in April 1st, 2019, and I started down the medicine path initially with psilocybin, and when the Dose documentary came out, I was drawn to that. I've heard of Ibogaine clinics, but when you're an addict, you don't have that kind of money because your money goes towards your addiction. And at that point, I was doing good. I was working in camp, and I had the money, and I decided to go down to Costa Rica and sit at Iboga Wellness Center with Gary Cook and Levi, and yeah, like Elizabeth said, I was introduced to my soul. I was introduced to who I truly am. I was able to meet different versions of myself. I was able to do like so much healing in a matter of hours instead of months and years. And when I sat with this medicine, I became clear. I knew what needed to be done. I had direction and I had guidance from a higher power, and I knew, and I had a relationship with that higher power now. I didn't quite understand that before that, It's not that I didn't believe in God, but I just didn't understand what that God was to me. And Iboga showed me that. And that's what Mark says, it's the truth, basically. And it is love. It's fierce love. Iboga is not, a soft medicine. And it can be soft, but it's not always soft. And I believe, as I think it was Graber was saying about the hours, is you have to put that effort in to get that really deep healing. If you don't want to sit for the 12 hours, then you're not going to get the 12 hours of healing. But my life completely changed. After that, I was a chef for 23 years, quite successful in what I did before my addiction, and I never went back to it. I tried to go back to it, and it didn't work. And I could see the guidance, I could see the signs, and I followed the path of the medicine. I created my own microdosing company with mushrooms, and I sat with the medicine with some people here in Vancouver a couple more times, and my path has led me to working with the medicine, providing the message. It's always been this calling. I was bugging Mark for, I think, about a year and a half. I got him on Facebook, and I would always talk to him, and we slowly became closer and closer. I'm friends with some of his really, really good friends. And this year I was called to Africa. And I was going to go by myself because I was just so determined to go and do an initiation, to go and be on the land, to be where the ancestors are from with this medicine. And Mark invited me with his group, and that's when I met Chor, Elizabeth's partner. And I was able to go, and I was so held by Chor and the entire team, getting to meet Patrick and Michelle and all the participants. It was just an amazing experience. I feel very blessed. We were able to open up a brand new temple, and so many of the Buidi were there, and it really changes you. It really gives you a new perspective on just the way things work. We come from the West world and we're so like rush, 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 but you know, there it's so amazing to be in this like laid back and what the Buidu would say, malembe, malembe, like slow, slow, and everything's done at a slow pace. They don't rush anything. And it's beautiful, and it kind of breaks you down in a sense because you have that Western world mentality where you need to get everything done, and you need, oh, well, when's the sun starting? And it breaks you down in such a beautiful way to be able to reconnect with that. I was able to do my men's writer's passage as well too, which was beautiful mentally and physically challenging. But I don't go there to have a comfort. It wasn't a vacation. It was there to be uncomfortable, to show what I could put myself through and how strong I am. I have that warrior spirit, that Bawidi spirit that would say in your heart. And now I'm blessed to be able to work with Mark. I'm training underneath him, and we'll be hosting some retreats very, very soon. And I'm just so happy that I can be able to work with this medicine and be able to help other people that were in the same situation that I was in, where I was so desperate. I was on the street, like I said, I slept on a sleeping bag on the streets. And I want to be able to give other people like me that opportunity to find their truth, to know that healing is possible and that there is no such thing as hopelessness.
Basti, Jesse, thank you so much for that beautiful story. I got to hear your story. Thank you for doing your work. Thank you for becoming medicine, living integration. Basti.
So let's take any questions from the studio audience. Anybody have a question who's here in person that would like to ask anyone a question? Well, that's a big negatory. Awesome. So as we... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
It's for Elizabeth. This is very high for me, but hi, Elizabeth. Do you have any experience with dementia and Iboga?
That is a great question. So I don't personally. I would like to ask Patrick about that.
I cannot hear you.
Oh, I cannot hear.
I can feel you.
I can feel you. You hear me? Like dementia needs a bit of time to work with because it's a very I don't know of a lot of experience right now with it. Like even working in Africa with the shamans, it could be a spiritual thing, but because it's such a degradation of synapses in the brain, that it might need a lot more like neurological foundational medicine from a conventional standard. We have to talk to the nurses and things like that. Do you have experience where it's fixed dementia?
So it could be really helpful.
Yeah.
It could because it is so neuroprotective, and I'm just going to type that in because it's so neuroprotective. Sammy, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. But just, yes. Okay. You can hear me. Great. So it could be, I would love to, there's no studies out there yet on it, but I'm going to ask Patrick, maybe you want to write in to info@soulcentro.com we can check in with our medical directors about, because he has almost 1,000 ceremonies under his belt, 1,000 treatments. But I think it's very exciting possibilities. And I think there is some research out there on early stage Alzheimer's with psychedelics in general. And because it's so neuroregenerative, I bet in the early stages it could be helpful. But I don't know. So talk to our medical director. He's so experienced. I think Patrick Fishley would be a great person to consult with about that, just from his own experience.
I just want to thank you both, Elizabeth and Mark, for joining us today from different parts of the world and sharing your experience and the remarkable power, really, of Iboga. And I want to thank all of you who have joined us online and participating. And I really want to thank you for keeping your cameras on, because that's what makes these events work. I want to thank our studio audience in-house for their patience as we've worked through a few things as we roll through the world of technology. And I always like to thank my good friend Stephen Gray because I'll tell you, he entertains all my wacky ideas that are way out there of doing things in a crazy way. And so, Stephen, I thank you for your patience and willingness to, go out on a limb and do some of these crazy things we do. And I also want to thank Hubcast Media for putting all this together, because, this is new ways of working. It is new technology. We are working out the bugs. And I have a belief, one of my belief systems is really continuous and never-ending improvement. Everything is always about getting better. What can we learn from this? How do we make this even better for our lives individually and to anything in life? That's one of my fundamental ways of allows me to really get through almost everything. So I just want to thank everyone for being here and for what we're doing here, and looking forward to November 4th, 5th, and 6th, getting about 500-600 people live in person at UBC. Right?
Yeah, can I put in a word about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I was gonna pass it to you just in a moment, but anyways, it's all yours, Stephen. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
No, I just want to add about that, Mark, that I have a very passionate feeling that with the world, kind of falling apart before our very eyes, and that being a process which is likely to increase its pace in the relatively near future, this gathering, this conference, is really about collecting people together with an empowerment in mind. Shared intention has shown by many people to be an incredibly powerful thing. Like, there's a lot of potential in shared intention, and the conference brings people together, not just those on stage by any stretch, not just the speakers that we have, but the group that comes to this conference empowers each other, and it's really important now. So I just really want to encourage people who can come to make sure that they find a clear spot that weekend and come to Vancouver. And again, if you can't, Mark has done a wonderful job setting it up so that you can participate online from anywhere in the world. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're going to segue us into our closing, my friend?
So I'm going to segue us in now to one more song from...
You can tell we're really scripted here all day long.
Yeah. Well, I was watching a television series recently, Yellowstone. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some guys that say on there, he says, rehearsals are for cowards. Anyway, that said, Vanessa is going to close it out with another song. Go ahead, Vanessa, please.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This song is called Medicine.
Listen and hear it in the beat and the music. It's here with the message and nothing but perfect. So listen and hear it, the calling from spirit. Remember how we're meant to be, wild and free. Connect to the ground beneath our bare feet. We're like the roots that grow in the concrete jungle, slitting through the road on our way home. way up，从那开始的一刻。 是大地的孩子们，让我们用它的药来找灵魂。And lose your mind and enter the vortex, follow the trail of the white rabbit into the land where the clocks all tick without both hands. And see that time is an illusion, let it fade away. There's no such thing as separation, we're all made up of space.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we are going to sign off now from Spirit Plant Medicine. We look forward to seeing you November 4th, 5th, and 6th, live in person and online, virtual and interactive. We look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.